So today, as you know, many of you know, I'm going to be talking about the Ho'onopono prayer. And I know that there are a lot of interpretations out there. And some of you may be new to it, and others may be practicing it in your unique way. You may have learned it from someone. And I'm going to share how the prayer sits with me, my interpretation of it, based on my understanding. What else can we do, right? Just share what we know. And also, it's always growing and changing. So what I'm sharing today may be because we're together here, and whatever I'm saying and expressing will be an arising out of collaboration, a field of collaboration. And so the speaking will be unique to that, to what we hopefully need. So the prayer, first of all, is a tender one. And it's meant to help us tune in and feel our vulnerability. So if you're feeling already a little vulnerable, that's a good start. And if you're not, it's okay. But it's because it's a very intimate prayer. It's meant to be coming from a very sincere place. And it's simple and also very deep, just like we are at our core. So it's meant to take us one deeper than complexity, our complex nature, and pierce our heart. The heart that is in love with itself, the heart, the unconditional heart, and it passes through the human heart first, the prayer, and it acknowledges our very human heart that is tender and hurts and celebrates. It has all these aspects to it. The human heart, it feels like it needs to protect itself, and it's so the prayer is it unfolds upon itself. So it goes like this from source. The prayer is coming from source, and it enters the very human heart, and then as it goes deeper and penetrates, it starts to touch the unconditional heart that is already in acceptance and in gratitude. So that's basically how it happens, the process. And so it goes very deep. It goes as deep as you wish and as you can bring it, as deep as you're able to. And that ability grows with time and with practice as we grow in understanding of what the prayer is about. And I had this desire to practice this prayer, I don't know, maybe 8-9 years ago. Spontaneously arose. It may have been 7 years ago. And I went through it for about a year or two, and it just kind of, I don't know where I even heard it. And I didn't have anyone really walking me through it, but I just knew that there was truth to it, and that it was in effect a very non-dual prayer. It brought one to the core and essence of what non-duality means to me, and our understanding of non-duality deepens over time. So the prayer is simple for those who know it, and for those who don't, and I'm going to go through each of these 4 sentences, okay? It's I'm sorry, please forgive me, I love you, and thank you. So, some people switch some of those around. And that's the way that I practiced it. You can also switch some of it around. I have a puppy here if you hear some little noises, by the way. She hears my son. So, but I'm sorry, please forgive me are the first 2 ones. And eventually, as you become, if you want to become really practiced with it, it would just be an arising, because it so became part of my being. And I maybe would just say 1 sentence, and all of it would be contained in that 1 sentence, I'm sorry, or thank you, or I love you. All of it would just be sort of like this offering, and it's almost like into the fire of truth, an offering. Fire of the heart. Place yet another thing there that is wanting to be burnt up, not because it's bad or wrong, but because it's time for it to go back to where it came from, to the unborn. But with understanding, not with avoidance. That's one thing I love about this prayer. It makes you face yourself. So it's not like this, and skirting difficult things, that are painful about life. It's learning how to face it, and it's a tool to learn how to do that. Now, they say that it's a prayer of forgiveness and reconciliation. And, forgiveness can have a lot of charge to it, that word. So just having that out there is not necessarily explain what this is. Because forgiveness often it brings up that there's something to forgive. It brings up duality, which is a good one, an appropriate entryway at times. Right? That's just the nature of things. But the prayer, it actually it's much more intimate than that. It gathers all the pieces together of what we feel like we need to forgive, or what we're feeling a victim to, for instance, and it puts it so close. So I'll start with the I'm sorry. So I hope you're comfortable. First of all, I want to bring us back to ourselves, and checking in with yourself, how you're feeling. Where are you? Where's the energy in your body focused? Just to notice. So even though you may be looking at the screen, at myself, or at all of us, like I like to have it, a gallery view where I see everybody. I invite you to stay self-connected. firmly planted in yourself. And then the breath comes and goes. It's okay. Let's start off with I'm sorry. So the I'm sorry arises from within. And it's touching something. It's touching something that you may be containing within yourself. Maybe a pain, something that is hurting, something that may have happened to you, taken place, a wound. We'll start off there. Something that is contained within you before we move out into the world, right? So maybe you can find something right now, doesn't have to be big, doesn't have to be small, whatever arises. So there's something inside that is in pain or confused or is wishing to have more clarity. So we say to that part of ourselves, I'm sorry. I'm sorry it hurts. I'm sorry. That's the wind. I'm sorry for things being as they are. You can make it your own with your own words. I'm sorry for the conditions being what they are. Sorry for this past wound. I'm sorry this happened. Took place. So it's like a self saying I'm sorry to itself. Okay? And this in itself is very healing. We don't have to wait for the outer world to express that when we have that capacity, this capacity to gift ourselves this deep understanding and that part of you that knows that it hurts. You give that gift to the part that's hurting and say, I'm sorry. I'm sorry it hurts because it does. Okay. It's acknowledgement. That's what this one, sorry, the first I'm sorry is an acknowledgement. And I'm going to walk us through this. And when you do this on your own, you take all the time you want, right? All the time you need. You may sit with that one for hours or days. There's no need to rush through. So it's a space of allowance is what you're doing. Is you're giving permission to whatever's feeling hurt, just like a nice warm hug. It's a lot of understanding. Yeah. So I'm sorry. It's very humbling, And of course, this drops deeper than mine. This is going into the body and into the heart, into feeling. It's not a mental exercise, right? You feel it viscerally, you feel it with your sensing body. Lean into that part that's hurting and say, I'm sorry. And it's beautiful because you don't have to fix it right in any way. It's just simple, I'm sorry. And you might be imagining right now, because some of us are visual, and that's good, it's fine. You might be even imagining yourself holding that part of you, your little self or her part. And now I'm going to gently move us into the next sentiment. And that is, please forgive me. And again, stay connected to your body and to your heart and to your feeling body. No need to analyze what this means. It's much deeper. This prayer is much deeper than what it means. Please forgive me. What is one part of you saying it to another part of you? Please forgive me for whatever it is that I might have contributed innocently. Forgive me, and I'm life saying this to myself. Forgive me, says life. Forgive me. I didn't know any better. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to even move into forgiveness. It's just receiving. Receiving those words. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. It goes along with, if I knew better, I'd do better. If they knew better, they'd do better. So that's where the please forgive me comes from. And just let it land. No need to move into, yes, I forgive, or no, I don't. Maybe that's there too. But it isn't asking you to. It's an offering. It's like an olive branch. Please forgive me, says life. And you let it be. Just like you're in a little canoe and there's a little trail of water behind you, and the water is just disappearing into the lake as you travel on. And it's just an internal moment of now saying, please forgive me. How does that work in your system over time? Don't need to know right now. Something is so sorry, and asking for whatever forgiveness in truth is, not the belief around it, but what forgiveness is. So you let that sit with you. It's like a gestalt thing. You let it work through you, in you. A lot of unknown. Don't know what's going to happen with this prayer. It really leaves outcome behind. We don't know. It's nonlinear. So that can take a while too, that can take a good time. And there's no rush, because what we want is truth. And truth in this is harmonization. Truth is when something gets met so deeply that it's transformed. And that's what happens when truth enters and starts to transform our bodies. It doesn't just do it like that, because it wants to reconcile and heal and learn through the process wants it to be a true thing. So sometimes it takes a good while. You're doing this for yourself. You're not doing this for anyone else. You're not being asked to forgive anybody else. You're not. This is for you, your healing journey. You giving yourself this gift of forgiveness for you. So you don't have to hold on to it anymore and be at the painful end of something that's happened. Okay? So it's empowering. The next statement is I love you. And this is the truth of things. So we're saying it to this part of us that is has forgotten, right? And is hurting. What does it need? Needing understanding. It's needing for a greater part of itself to take responsibility in some way because it doesn't know how to do it on its own. Right? It's too big for it to take responsibility. And it needs to know that it's loved. You know? So it's like gathering these parts of you one by one and holding them with care and with love. The eyes of the unconditional heart peering through. Say, I love you. I love you as you are. I love you. And it's this gaze of love, in the surrounding, all around and underneath, supporting this misunderstood, hurting part. So I love you, and I don't need this to go away or you to be any different or anything. This is just the truth of things, is I love you. And of course, you're saying it to yourself, right? It's part of you. That perhaps has even been so hard to look at and relegated to the shadows, periphery. And so, so hard sometimes to get close. It's frightening. It can be frightening because we don't have the tools to know how to meet it, to be with it. So it's like a song of love. I love you. And what happens when something's loved over time? It tends to feel nourished, nurtured, allowed to be as it is, right? And what happens when something's allowed to be as it is? Really, truly allowed. It's like, maybe I'd like to shift a bit or be something else or transform. I don't need to be in this one way forever. It's maybe one way that is not living its complete fulfillment. its potential to change. Everything is likes to change and move and be in flux and be creative, everything in us. But these wounds, they tend to stay static. So all this is giving it lots of permission to be as it is. And when something is allowed to be as it is, it tends to stretch out. And well, there's a lot of love here, all kinds of good things. And out it goes. It moves. And healing is happening. It's taking place. This is healing. There's no pushing, there's no forcing, but there's an invitation, a really direct invitation. Okay. And then the last bit is thank you. And thank you is like I really do. I saw this so often inside of myself. This like pranam, this thank you from the part that is somehow has the capacity to imagine and invite and the wisdom and the wherewithal. It's saying thank you to that other part that is being invited home. Invited to let go and blossom. So thank you for giving me this opportunity to learn about myself. Thank you for holding out for so long and waiting for the proper invitation and not lying about, pretending that this is not here. And staying true to what has been being held within. Thank you for being true to yourself and giving me this opportunity to learn about how to be and include. Thank you for, helping me grow. So that's, there's a lot there. You'll come up with your own. It'll be a spontaneous thing. Thank you. And what does that thank you mean to you? It's also a blessing, right? So there's a thank you and there's also a blessing. And both parts bless one another. Okay, it's not just one direction. At that point, this kind of full circle is taking place, where the essence of oneness is arising. Of what is saying thank you to what? Saying thank you to myself, and that part is returning home, and there's a celebration. So it's an arising, this thank you. And that thank you is also a blessing. They're commingled. Wishing you well, it wishes itself well. It loves itself. So this is the dance, the Ho'oponopono dance. And you can dance it over and over again. It'll always be a little different. And then maybe, if you like it, another thing will rise up and say, me too, please. Can I be brought into this, healing circle? And so it gets repeated, and it's organic and an alive thing. You don't want to burn yourself out. I usually just did one at a time, but it could have deep roots, could have very deep roots and lead to something else. And it really is like an inner song, it's something you singing to yourself, a dance, a song. And so I gave an example of how to be with this in yourself. And that's ultimately where it's happening. And now I'd like to move it out and I'll maybe go a little faster, but I'd like to move it out and how to use this prayer for something that seemingly is lying outside of us. I love all the cats in this that are appearing. Animals really get drawn to this kind of quiet, don't they? Yeah, to yourself, your lap. So I saw that this prayer would arise in me spontaneously out in the world. And for instance, one time I was at the grocery store and I saw a mother and child, and the child, I think she was in the shopping cart. She was small enough, but she wasn't a toddler, so might have been 3 or so, something like that. And mother was reprimanding her pretty loudly, and it was not a pleasant moment. It brought up a lot of sadness in me to see this child being treated this way. So the prayer spontaneously arose in me. And I said it internally, of course, but I said it to this little girl. And I said, and so this is something you can apply, and just as an example, of how it can arise for what you're experiencing on the outside with people who are hurting or some aspect of the world or life. So I said, internally, I'm sorry. It's like acknowledging her pain. My heart was feeling it, feeling the pain. So it was an acknowledgement that there was a witness, witness that was willing to feel. And the heartbreak, right? The heartbreak, because that if that's happening in the store, you can imagine it's probably happening all the time for her at that time. And this is repeated all over the world, these kind of things, right? So please forgive me. Now, this was life saying to itself, right? I didn't have any part to play besides being there and witnessing. But I carry within me unconscious material, just like we all do. So in some collective way, we are all connected in that we contain ignorance. Right? It's taking some responsibility for whatever part I have played and that humanity plays. It was vast. It wasn't just personal. It was vast. But it entered in the human way. How unconscious we can be with language and unhealed aspects. So I'm sorry was life saying it to itself in its fullness, of all its aspects of its unconscious nature, its conscious nature, and beyond. Please forgive me. It's similar, you know. They're very close together. That's why I say they belong together. If you're going to be changing things around, please forgive me is, you know, an ownership that, you know, it's kind of like that saying we're all in this together, you know. So we're in this together in our beauty and magnificence. And we're also in this together in our unconscious material to whatever degree, because we are one. See, that's why I say it's a true non-dual prayer, because oneness, it doesn't it understands that there are parts of it that are wounded and unconscious. Obviously, it's still here, right? So it's still here. It's still here. So it's that part that is like owning it. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Forgive me for this expression. You know. And I think that we may be surprised at how healing this can be, to own it in this way. And it's not like, oh, I feel so bad. It's way deeper. It's way deeper than some kind of moral self-judgment or mass judgment, okay? It's really opening up the doors to what opening to that kind of pain really is about. It's so then I love you is the next one, right? I love you. Of course we love this little girl, you know? And we love this world, even with all the mess inside of it. That's a blessing right there, is that we love in spite of. We love even though. And we love just because. No, I wasn't doing this prayer to the mother, you know. That would be a whole nother journey. I'm just explaining to you what arose for me with this girl. So this little girl, she needed some real, you know, love, sincere love. That's there in the midst of it, whatever's arising is love. And that's always true, that there's love here in the midst of whatever is taking place for us in the world. So it's invoking that in the space. Wouldn't it be nice if it was so strong that it just kind of voided it out for her? I know that would be a lovely thought. But anyway, it was an invitation to bring that in. I love you. And then thank you, you know, as I walked away, got on with my day. There's an inner thank you for having opened my eyes, opened my heart, brought out this prayer, reminded me of the fragility of life and the tenderness, reminding me even how far we still have to go as a race, as a human, you know, beings. Just thank you for the truth of this, you know, the painful truth of it. Right? I'm not saying it's all flowers and unicorns and stuff, you know, that kind of thank you. It wakes you up, right? It's like, thank you for, yeah, whatever little fantasies I might have going about what my day's about or what's going on in the world. Thank you for reminding me of another part of it. Thank you. So you can see how deep this can run, huh? And that was challenging, that pain of that girl. And of course, there are even more challenging moments. And might be even less seemingly challenging moments, that might make that prayer arise. You'd be surprised. I was walking with a friend one day and they were just chatting with me. It was a lovely moment out in the woods, and they, without knowing it, and I didn't bring their attention to it because it's life is life. They were stepping on the prettiest little flowers. And there can be a spontaneous movement of, I'm sorry. And it's just it's lighter, right? That's a lighter thing, because the flowers probably just kind of bounce back up. But it's it's not like you have to do it to everything. It's more like if it spontaneously arises, then it's true for you. And you can look up online where this prayer comes from. It's an ancient Hawaiian huna practice, so it's very old, and part of their kahuna tradition. And it was modernized by a doctor, apparently. And I don't know the whole story and the full truth and all that, but and he was using this prayer for his patients, and who were mentally distressed patients, and he says many of them were getting better, just getting better. And he was saying it to each one of them internally, to himself, over time. Went through each person and felt into them. And apparently a lot of healing took place. So you can look it up and explore if you're interested in. There's even a book about that he wrote. And other people have been taking it and doing all kinds of things with it. And it's a gift to humanity, is how I see it. So, and remember, the thank you at the end is also a blessing, right? That we're all in this together, and thank you for reminding me of yet another part that belongs to oneness, another aspect of oneness that has been brought to my attention. And this is really consciousness continuing to wake up within us. Continuing to become illuminated to itself. And since we're all truly connected, and scientifically too, they say, there's really no separation, then why wouldn't this prayer have an effect on us, not only on yourself and all your cells and all the parts of you, but also all the parts of you out here that are hurting and that are confused. And one more thing that I'd like to share is that as we deepen in the understanding of oneness and what the heart is really about, which is where unity lives, it's the heart, we really begin to see within ourselves, and that always translates on the outer, that anything that's causing harm, pain, is really confused energy, ignorant to itself, and unhealed in its own way. And that if it knew the truth of things, the oneness, the unity of its own nature, it would never do that. we wouldn't speak in those unkind ways. It would clean it up because it doesn't want to cause harm to itself, right? It wouldn't act out in the same way. It would do better, learn better, but from the real place, not a mental understanding, a real deep understanding from within. And then really, honestly, at that point, if people can be remade in that way, they are new. They're really not the same person anymore at all. A person is made of a bunch of aspects. And so as we change, we change. So anything you're seeing, this is an understanding that deepens over time, and it doesn't absolve it. It doesn't make it all right. You can still have a very strong no and a strong sense of what's right and wrong, and I certainly do. Because that's important to draw boundaries and to be clear. But to also know in the deepest part of ourselves, as we become more and more integrated and healed within, we will know this automatically. It's a natural translation, as we really know. Even when we say no, and we say, don't act like that, we could use a good dose of goodness in the world and all this other stuff, right? And greed, the dropping away of greed and all that. All that is just, tragic. But internally, we know that nothing would ever act that way if it knew better, really knew better within, deep within. So to have that understanding really helps. And it doesn't make you a pansy. I love pansies, but you know what I mean. It doesn't make you a wimp out in the world. Like, just step on me, it doesn't matter. Or step on others. No. There are times to really stand up and say, this is not okay. So I hope that helps, just that last piece, to bring it into context of how I see it. But still, how deep this prayer, the Ho'oponopono prayer, can be. And what a deep effect it can have. And like I said, I practiced it for a few years, and it just began to live in me. And it doesn't come up so much like in a conscious way anymore, but it's been internalized where there's this inner movement, and it really does often say, it's like I see someone hurting or they're acting out or talking a certain way, and there will be this like, I'm sorry. Because I know, even if I want to take myself away from that situation, I know that they're hurting. And I know how painful it can be inside that would cause such acting out. So there's this, I'm sorry, life says to itself.